Hi, I'm Anand Subaraj, Senior Program Manager in the Master Data Services team, and I'm going to talk about Master Data Services in SQL 2012. Master Data Services in SQL 2012 provides capability for organizations to efficiently build the infrastructure while allowing the business users to own the curation process. You would see with our feature sets in SQL 2012, we are trying to simplify the master data management game by providing ease of use and iterative approach of starting small and progressing to a bigger scale, thus significantly reducing the overall cost of implementation. Some of our TAP customers, who are the early adopters, were able to install the product, load the initial data set, and have meaningful prototypes in less than 24 hours. The agenda for today: we are going to look at a high-level introduction of Master Data Services and its capabilities, key scenarios, and overview of the architecture, and then deep dive into the new features in MDS SQL 2012. Today, businesses are heavily relying on data analysis in their day-to-day business decisions. One of the major challenges in this area is to ensure the data is always reliable and relevant. Currently, this task falls mainly on the organization's already overloaded IT, creating a bottleneck and impeding agility. MDS goal in SQL 2012 is to simplify the task of raising the quality of the data by empowering the information workers and data experts to perform the tasks in their daily tool of choice, which is Microsoft Excel, allowing the IT team to take a role of supervisors and provide oversight. Let's look at what master data is and how we perceive it. Analyst reviews about master data usually focuses on two objects: customers and products. We believe the scope of master data is much broader than that. It is about any data that is worth managing for its consumers. It's about data that is at the focus of organizational activities and important for the organization that requires putting some process and managing it. Examples are customers, products, locations, tasks, cost centers, and anything else which the organization can consider important. Characteristics of master data: number one, it involves continuous quality management. Managing master data is not a one-time effort. It is an iterative process and requires constant quality management to ensure the data is accurate, up-to-date, and can be consumed. Number two, there needs to be a central curation. Number three, it should provide ease of access for business users. People who interact with the master data objects are not the IT folks. IT is normally providing governance and putting the infrastructure in place, but it is the business users who is closer to the master data objects and understands them. So we want to make it easy for these information workers and business users to interact with the system and manage the data without requiring any IT involvement. And there needs to be an act of sharing for both producing and consuming the master data. It is seldom the fact that one person creates the master data domains like customers or products. It requires involvement from multiple folks to create and manage the data in an ongoing fashion. Another important aspect of master data is that it exists in different forms in different departments within the organization. For example, marketing may be more interested in specific attributes of customers which are completely different from the customer attributes which finance department considers important. Master Data Services enables users to curate sets of objects which are powerful in a wide variety of scenarios across all organizational levels. We have seen several implementations of MDS in various scenarios. They can be broadly classified into the following three categories. Starting with the rightmost one, operational data management. This is the classical MDM scenario and involves integrating few disparate systems and ensure they have a common view of a set of objects, for example, customer information. Out of box, MDS does not provide an end-to-end solution for operational data management. MDS does not have connectors for external systems such as SAP, CRM, or Dynamics. However, it provides a very strong platform and interfaces which can be used by partners, SIs, or IT to build the end-to-end solution. The one in the middle, data warehouse or data marts management. This is one of the main focus areas of MDS and also our BI scenario. We manage dimensions, relationships in dimensions, and objects in dimensions in a simpler way, probably simpler than anyone else out there because we do it at the business users level. There are a few videos that we have released recently which explains in details this scenario. The links are located at the end of the presentation. The rest of the scenarios are bucketed as data management solutions which can be further grouped into few subcategories. Number 1, object mapping. Consider an example of Coke which may have a part number for Walmart and another part number for Target, and they would want to extend master data to have all the data in the same place. Master data services is a great place to do that. Once you have that, you can create views for any external systems to reference that information. We have also seen MDS used for metadata management. There are several cases where departments and even organizations cannot get rid of the Excel hell that they have, but they can use MDS to keep track of all the information. It is like a data dictionary which can be used to keep track of all the information that they have in several places in the organization and their usage. Let's look at the capabilities of master data services. Starting with the top left, modeling. This is the bread and butter of what we do. We allow users to create models by defining entities which maps to table in SQL, create attributes which maps to columns in SQL, and defining the relationships between objects which we call hierarchies. Once the model is defined, it is important to maintain the sanity of the data and its accuracy. Master data services allows users to validate the data in a model by using business rules. These are semantic business rules and not syntactic and can be created as per the business requirements and run whenever needed. Another important aspect of master data is to ensure data is clean and does not have any duplicates. MDS addresses this by integration with data matching of data quality services. It is a new feature in SQL 2012 and we are currently only addressing few specific scenarios. It will be extended in future versions to include the full range. MDS also allows you to maintain multiple versions of the master data in a model. This is very important in financial scenarios where at the end of the year, one version of the data can be locked for auditing, while another version of the same master data can be made open for consumption by users without impacting the business. MDS also has a very extensive security model. It allows you to restrict the permissions for a user to a cell in the table. We provide both row and column level security, which provides much more flexibility than the entity level security that some of our competitors provide. We also have another interesting feature called transaction annotation, which allows users to add comments whenever any changes are done. This can be used for tracking history of changes and useful in auditing purposes. We have two sets of interfaces for integrating with external systems. At the SQL level, we provide staging tables for loading data in MDS and subscription views for consumption of the data from MDS. Another set of interface are the WCF APIs, which can be used for implementing custom interfaces. Out of the box, MDS provides two user interfaces. The web user interface, which existed in 2008 R2 but improved significantly in this release, and the new Excel add-in, which is introduced in SQL 2012. This is the typical architecture diagram of master data services. It is a three-tiered application. At the bottom of the stack is the powerful MDS database, which is hosted on SQL Server. As I mentioned earlier, we provide two interfaces at the database level. Entity-based staging tables for loading data into MDS by using SSIS or other ETL processes, and subscription views for consuming data from MDS and can be used for integration with external systems. In the middle tier, the MDS service is hosted on the IIS service. It provides the WCF APIs, which can be used to create custom interfaces and build notifications that can be attached to workflows. And in the front end, MDS has two interfaces, the web UI and the Excel add-in, which are built on top of the WCF APIs. There are no hidden APIs, and all these are publicly available. Before diving into the features, let's briefly look at the progression of master data services from SQL 2008 R2 to SQL 2012. In 2008 R2, the main focus was implementation of the foundational platform and integration with SQL. Most of the feature sets existed in SQL 2008 R2, but it was a V1 product and had few quality and performance issues. In SQL 2012, the main focus is on empowering the business users and information workers by means of much improved web user interface and the all-new Excel add-in. We have also significantly improved performance, usability, and overall quality of the product, and built new features based on top customer requirements. As I mentioned earlier, Excel add-in is introduced in Master Data Services SQL 2012. We are very excited about this feature and believe this is going to change the master data management game, and the customer feedback from the early adopters is very promising. Excel add-in allows information workers and business users to participate in and own the process of curating the data. It provides simplified user experience for defining the models in a rapid manner, thus simplifying the work of IT in setting up the system, and allows faster and easier interaction with the business users. With the MDS Excel add-in, the MDM implementation has transformed from waterfall approach to a more agile concept where business users are involved in a much earlier stage and provide feedback which improves the overall quality of the data significantly. And this is a game changer considering the traditional complex MDM approach. Now let's take a look at the demo of the Excel add-in. This is the Master Data Services Excel add-in. You'd see the Master Data tab in the Excel ribbon once you have the Excel add-in installed. It is available for both Office 2007 and 2010 and comes in x86 and AMD 64-bit flavor. From the Excel add-in, you can connect to any MDS server by using HTTP connection. I'll now connect to my local host which has MDS installed. Once the server is connected, you can see the list of the models and the corresponding entities. Consider an example where I manage this customer list locally on my laptop, and I'd like to manage this list in Master Data Services. Now I'm going to select the data and click on the Create Entity button. I'll pick one of the existing models on the server called Demo and call the new entity as Customer List. I'll assign the code attribute, which is mandatory, and then assign the name attribute, which is an optional attribute. I also have the option to generate the code automatically, which I'm not going to do here. And then press the OK button. Behind the scenes, MDS is running stored procedures for creating the entity, all the attributes, and loading the data in the system. It also validates the data against any business rules that are associated with the entity. You can see the entity is created and the customer data that I was managing locally is now managed in MDS server, and Excel only acts as a glorified interface for me to manage the data. I can leverage the full power of Excel along with the MDS capabilities to manage and curate the data. The attributes of this entity are created based on the analysis of the data, and most of these are either text or numbers. For example, if I select house number and look at the attribute property, I see that it is of attribute type number and have 0 decimal places. These are automatically assigned by MDS and can be modified by users. I would now like to create the state code as a pickle list to ensure there are no typing errors while editing this attribute. I select state code and click on attribute properties. I select the attribute type as constraint list and populate the values from a new entity which I'm going to call state. I also have the option to populate the values from an existing entity, which is not possible here since the state entity does not already exist. Now I press the OK button. Now MDS creates a new entity called state with the unique values from the state code attribute and establishes the foreign key relationship between these two tables. I can see that state code now has a pickle list and can choose from the existing values. So within the last few minutes, I was able to manage my local list on MDS by creating a new entity and was able to create relationship with another entity, all using the Excel interface and not writing any code. This is a testament of the power and the value that Mass Data Services Excel add-in brings in SQL 2012. Now in the entity, I see the street type attribute is blank for this member. I'll go ahead and update it, and you can see MDS identifies that it is a new value and marks it with a different color, which indicates it is not yet published to the server. Now that I have updated the member, I'll publish the change by clicking on the Publish button. MDS allows users to add a comment or annotation associated with the change. I have the option to add a single comment for all my changes, or in case of multiple changes, I can add individual comments for each change. I'll add a comment, call it demo, and publish the changes. I can now right click on the member and click on View Transactions to look at the history of all the changes that were performed on this member. It is logged with the username, date time, and the annotation, which can be used for auditing purposes and governance of the data changes. MDS Excel add-in also allows you to load only the data from the entity that you are interested in while opening a new entity. This is very efficient in cases where there are a large number of records on an entity and you want to manage only a small subset. This significantly improves performance and scalability by reducing the amount of data brought from the server. For this purpose, you can use the filter button. In this case, I am not interested in house number, street name, and street type attributes, so I uncheck them. And I want to look at the customers that are only from Washington State. So I'm going to add a filter on state code and set it equal to Washington. I click on the update summary, which quickly provides me the number of records that meets the criteria. Now I click on the load button, and it is going to load only the customers that are from the Washington State, and it excludes all the attributes that are removed from the selection. Now it is more manageable for me to curate this small set of data. MDS Excel add-in also allows you to load only the data from the entity that you are interested in while opening a new entity. This is very efficient in cases where there are a large number of records on an entity and you want to manage only a small subset. This significantly improves performance and scalability by reducing the amount of data brought from the server. For this purpose, you can use the filter button. In this case, I'm not interested in house number, street name, and street type attributes, so I uncheck them. And I want to look only at the customers that are from the Washington State. So I add a filter on state code and set it equal to Washington. I click on update summary, and it quickly provides me the number of records that meets the criteria. Now I click the load data button and it loads only the customers that are from the Washington state and excludes all the attributes that are removed from the selection. Now I can curate this data. MDS also provides the capability to save the query of your connection along with the filter criteria to promote easy sharing and collaboration. I can do this by clicking on the Save Query button. Once the query is saved, I can easily share it with others by clicking on the Send Query button. It opens a new email with the saved query as an attachment. This query file is similar to a link and does not contain any data. It can also be hosted on SharePoint, and anybody who has the MDS Excel add-in installed and permissions to view the data can open it to connect to your server using the same filter criteria and obtain the latest data. This concludes the demo of Master Data Services Excel add-in in SQL 2012. Moving on, we have a redesigned and higher performance web user interface in SQL 2012. One of the major customer complaints in SQL 2008 R2 was regarding the usability and performance of the web user interface. We have mainly focused on these two areas and improved them significantly in this release. The Explorer, Hierarchy Management, and Integration Management sections of the web user interface is updated with Silverlight look and feel for better usability, consistent navigation, and improved performance. The commonly used features like add remove members, moving members in the hierarchy, and the filter experience is made much intuitive and snappier. Apart from usability and performance enhancements, we have also added new features like waiting in collections and many-to-many relationships explorer as per top customer requests. Let's take a look at the demo of the new web user interface. Now I'm on the Master Data Services web user interface homepage. It has got 6 functional areas grouped as information worker tasks and the administrative tasks based on the personas who will be using the interface. Also, we have added an advertisement for Excel add-in to ensure users can get to it easily. Excel add-in is not going to be available in the box and will be hosted on Download Center. This URL points to Download Center but can be configured to a different location by the administrator. The administrator can also configure whether or not to display the Excel add-in advertisement on this homepage. Now I'm going to use one of my existing models called Customer and navigate to the Explorer area. As you can see, I'm taken directly to the customer entity, which is a base entity in this case. If there are no base entities defined, the first entity in the model will appear here. The Explorer screen is divided into 2 sections, the read-only grid on the left and the edit window on the right. We can easily navigate through different members and make the edits on the right pane. Whenever an edit is done, users can add comments or annotations associated with the changes. If there were any business rules validation error, users can see that here. There are also some client-side validations to ensure the data entered is correct. For example, if I make the code attribute empty, which is a mandatory attribute, it immediately detects that and lets me know that this value cannot be blank. Now I'll select one of the members, make some edits, add an annotation, call it demo, and save the changes. Now that I have edited this member, I can click on the View Transactions and view the history of the changes that were performed on this member. All the changes made to this member are logged with the username, the date time, and the annotation, which is very useful in auditing purposes. I can also create a new member by clicking on the Add Member button. Coming to the grid, the leftmost column is the validation status. It shows the members that have validation success, failures, and the members that are waiting to be validated. Apply Rules button applies the business rules. It can be used to apply the rules to the grid or to the entire entity. When you want to apply the business rules to the entire entity, it could take some time depending on the size of the entity. We provide you this informational message, and this is an asynchronous process which allows you to perform other operations while the validation is happening in the background. You can click the check status to view the status of the validation of the entity at any point in time. Now let's take a look at the filter interface. I can add a filter easily and retrieve the relevant members. We also support complex filter criteria such as is like, starts with, and matching algorithms, which are performance intensive operations, but when you use them, you'll notice how quickly it gets the data. In addition, we also provide the capability to filter based on validation status. Now I'll navigate to the hierarchy area. I select one of the explicit hierarchy in the customer model called area for this demo. As you can see, we have a consistent navigation with the read-only grid and the edit pane as an explorer. We have added an additional pane for displaying the hierarchy tree. On selecting a node in the tree, the corresponding leaf members get displayed on the grid and they can be edited on the right pane. One of the most interesting operations in hierarchy is to move members from one node to another. We can perform this operation with just few clicks. For example, I can move New York from northeast to southeast by just dragging and dropping. Similarly, I can move New York back to northeast by dragging and dropping it here. I can also do this operation by using cut and paste buttons. We can also search for any hierarchy items by entering their name in the search text box. Once the item is found, I can select the item and look for the parent by clicking on the Find Parent button. All these hierarchy related operations are very complex and hard to perform using some of the other interfaces. But as you saw, Master Data Services Web User Interface significantly simplifies this operation, and information workers can perform these within few minutes. This completes the short demo of the new improved Web User Interface in Master Data Services SQL 2012. As I mentioned earlier, one of the most important aspects of master data is to ensure the data is clean and does not have any duplicates. Master Data Services addresses this requirement by integration with Data Quality Services in SQL 2012. Data Quality Services, or DQS, is a new feature in SQL 2012. DQS provides data matching algorithms which can be accessed from within the MDS Excel add-in for identifying duplicates before publishing the data to the MDS servers. It also allows users to create grouping for similar records by utilizing the clustering feature that MDS DQS integration provides. You can leverage existing DQS knowledge base that is pre-installed as part of the installation for creating matching rules for deduplication of records. Also, you can create new knowledge base and adapt it from within the Excel add-in. Now let's take a look at the demo of MDS integration with Data Quality Services. The basic workflow I'm going to show in this demo will be to load data that's already managed in MDS into Excel, then to combine it with a new list that I have received from my marketing team. At that point, I'll use DQS to find data that's similar so I can clean up my list before publishing it back to MDS. To do this, you'll need a working installation of MDS and DQS. It can also be helpful to have a knowledge base that you have created in DQS, but it isn't required. So let's get started. Here is the list of customers that I have been managing in MDS. As you can see, I have names, addresses, city, state, and zip. And here is the list of customers that marketing sent me. I don't want to corrupt my MDS managed data, so I'm going to combine this with the MDS data first and do a comparison. It's important to note that I'm just doing this to get a gauge for how similar the data is. I'm not going to publish any new data until I have gone through all the results in a local spreadsheet. The first step is to combine all the data into a single sheet. To do this, I've loaded the MDS managed data and click Combine Data on the toolbar. Now I need to select the range of the data that I'm going to paste append to my MDS managed sheet. I'm going to select all the data in the sheet. As you can see, MDS auto-populates the columns based on their names. Now I click Combine, and the data is pasted on my sheet. You can see that a source column shows whether or not the data is managed in MDS. The new data is shown as external. The next step is to find out how similar these lists are. In the data quality group, I'm going to click Match Data. You can choose between a knowledge base you have created in the DQS client or the default knowledge base that comes with DQS. If you select a knowledge base you have created, you have already defined which areas are the most important to you. For example, whether you want to match states exactly but names only partially, etc. But so that you can learn some basic DQS concepts, I'm going to use the default DQS knowledge. We are going to create our own rule set here. We're going to start with the worksheet column called name, which corresponds to the customer name, and select the domain from the pre-populated list from DQS. Right now, there is not something that really matches, so I'm going to use the generic string. I want the name to be exact for there to be a match, and set the weight to 80%. Now I'll select the state name and map it to the US state domain. It is enough to be similar, and I set the weight to 10%. I'll do the same for country. Let's talk briefly about some key concepts here. Starting with prerequisite, it is data that should match 100%. Examples are social security numbers. If I had social security number in this data, I would set that as a prerequisite. If it fails, the rest of the rules would not be applied for that record and can help improve performance significantly on matching. In this example, I'm not going to choose any prerequisites. The next concept here is domain. A domain is an area of knowledge, for example, addresses or customers. In this example, I have mapped state attribute to US state domain. Similar is the case with country. And the last concept here is weight. For each domain, you need to decide how important it is compared to other domains. The total weight for the rules must be equal to 100%, as in the case here. And now I'm going to click OK. Now I have my results set. I'm going to view some extra details by clicking on the Show Details button. And I can scroll through and see how names have been grouped together based on what DQS things are similar. You can see that the results are much smarter than doing manual sorting. The cluster ID column is a method of grouping similar data. For example, you can see that these names are similar and they have been grouped or clustered together. If a row that does not have a cluster ID, it means that no matches were found and the data is considered unique. Just like these cases where the data is unique either on MDS or the external sheet. The score column shows you how confident DQS is that the data matches. Score of 100 means that they are exact matches based on the matching rules that we just created. Until I actually publish, all the data is not in MDS and this is my own playground. Once I click publish, we are going to have clean data and all the new data from the external sheet. The rest of this is up to you. In a real world scenario, you'd probably sort and filter this sheet until you knew which data you are going to publish into MDS. This worksheet would really just function as a guide for helping you decide which data is the most accurate and you discard it when you are done with your comparison. This concludes the demo, and I hope it has given you a little insight into the workflow for using DQS knowledge to find similarities with MDS data. Moving on, let's look at the entity-based staging feature in MDS SQL 2012. We were talking earlier about loading data into MDS using Excel, but Excel could pose some memory-related performance challenges while loading millions of records. We addressed this issue by providing staging tables for loading millions of records into MDS. In 2008 R2, we had staging tables, but it was name-value pairs and it had some performance issues. In 2012, we are introducing entity-based staging tables, as you can see in the picture below, where there is a corresponding staging table for each entity. Whenever an entity is created, a staging table is created for that entity. There are three main benefits. Number one, it is more intuitive. It is just like a table and can be used as a front porch for entering the data in master data services. Number two, since we have staging tables for each entity, it provides a better securability at the entity level. And number three, it has significant performance improvements than previous releases. Additionally, it also allows better integration with SQL Server integration services. Now let's take a look at the demo of entity-based staging in MDS SQL 2012. I have MDS installation on my machine and connected to my SQL Server. Now I'll select the MDS database for the instance which I'm going to use in the demo. If I scroll down in the tables, you can see that there are staging tables corresponding to each entity. Each entity that has explicit hierarchy enabled have three staging tables. One for leaf, one for consolidated, and there is one that holds the relationships. If explicit hierarchies are not enabled, there will only be one staging table for the leaf members. There are also stored procedures for each staging table to load the data from the staging tables to the entities in MDS. And there are views for each of these for displaying errors that were encountered during the load. Now I'm going to create a new entity in my demo model. I'll call this staging_demo and enable explicit hierarchy. Now that the new entity is created, I'll navigate to the MDS database and refresh the tables. I can see the staging tables are created corresponding to the new entity. Now I'll show a quick demo of how to use the staging table to upload data into MDS. In most cases, these are going to be batch processed by using SSIS or other ETL processes. But in this demo, I'm going to create a new member in the entity by using the following simple insert statement. We support 5 import types, and you can check the details on each one of them in MDS books online. In this case, we are using the import type 1, which is for creating new members. Import status ID provides status of the process and indicates whether it was success, failed, or not executed. Batch tag is for grouping the data that we load. And in this case, I'm trying to insert a new member with just code and name into the staging underscore demo entity which I created just now. Once this data is staged in the staging table, I'll now execute the stored procedure to load it into the corresponding entity. I can check the status of the load by looking at the error view. As you can see, there are no errors returned, which indicates the load was successful. We can also initiate the loading process and view the errors from the integration management functional area of the web UI. Now I'll navigate to the Explorer area and view the staging underscore demo entity. And you can see the member that we loaded using staging table is successfully created. This concludes the demo of the entity-based staging feature in MDS SQL 2012. Apart from all these features, we have also significantly improved the installation, upgrade, and model deployment experiences in MDS SQL 2012. Regarding installation, MDS is no longer a separate MSI and is part of the SQL Server setup. MDS 2012 RTM will support upgrade from all previous versions of 2008 R2 and RC0. And there are significant improvements in model deployment with high performance tools and new features for migrating either model schema, schema plus data, or partial models from one environment to another using the same version. We have great white papers and videos on all these in SQL Resource Center and books online. This concludes the demo of Master Data Services in SQL 2012. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. We have great contents online featuring how-to and training videos for new features and end-to-end scenarios. Also, there are detailed white papers and deep dive on the features in books online. Please visit the links below to utilize these contents and learn more on Master Data Services in SQL 2012. For information on Microsoft SQL Server 2012 certification training, please visit the link below. Thank you.